Okay, our final presentation of the day will be given by Maurice Ramirez, who's the founder and CEO of Pilot International, and Allison Takira, who's the president of Pilot International. Maurice? We're unable to hear you right now, Maurice.
Seems to have lost our audio. I apologize.
We can hear you now. We can hear you now.
At the conclusion of this presentation, attendees will be able to define response augmentation technologies, list several emergency management challenges of post-earthquake Haiti, and recall examples of response augmentation technologies that can be employed in the disaster field. Hopefully employed a little bit better than we just employed our microphone. Response augmentation technologies allow for forward, backward, lateral, horizontal, and vertical projection of information and expertise in support of disaster response and recovery. These include such things as telemetry, remote sensing, audio and video surveillance, imaging technologies, force augmentation, and remote presence, such as the webinar that you're attending today. Emergency management in Haiti before the earthquake, as all of you know, included in September of 2009, Haiti signing a Pan-Caribbean Emergency Management Compact. Unfortunately, there had been no time for a coordinated system to be put in place for emergency management in Haiti, or for any other system of emergency response. Although Haiti did have two 911 type phone numbers, 114 and 118. One was on the GSM phone system and one on the CDMA cellular system. Both of these were toll calls. You were charged to dial for emergency services, whether you dialed 114 or 118. And there was no intersection of these two phone systems or the information when you called. Depending on whether you dialed on a GSM phone or a CDMA phone, would determine who, if anyone, responded to your call for help, since there was no central dispatch.
And as this group is all aware, on the 12th of January 2010, at approximately 4:53 p.m., which was still a normal part of the working day for most of Haiti, the earthquake with a magnitude of 7 on the Richter scale struck first 35 continuous sections, decimating the capital of Haiti. And that, in fact, is the Capitol building in front of you. And depicted on this map, you'll see the approximate area of damage in the red kidney-shaped area that encompasses Port-au-Prince, the capital of the country. You can see that, as a reminder, that that was not the epicenter of damage. And although this area of damage constituted only about 20% of the square mileage of the country, the entire country would be affected. So prior to the earthquake, what hampered the initial response the most was the fact that we did not have a formal emergency management system or predefined mutual aid network. So the simultaneous needs of initiating a search and rescue operation, mounting the emergency response, restarting and helping to support local and national government operations and launch the recovery operation seemed nearly insurmountable. If
that wasn't bad enough. 6 hours after the quake, a viral attack occurred against the Win 2000-based Motorola repeater system. This took out 100% of the land mobile radio repeaters, as well as 100% of the WiMAX repeaters. Now, most people think of Haiti relative to its economic standing in the world, the second poorest nation on planet Earth prior to the earthquake, and the poorest nation after the earthquake. However, Haiti was one of the few wireless nations in the Western Hemisphere prior to the 2010 earthquake. Not only was it wireless for land mobile radio, police, and military, but it had stripped itself of the wired telephony system, with the exception of fax. So everyone had a cell phone, GSM and CDMA. And it had stripped itself of its wired internet system. Everybody was wireless broadband internet, WiMAX. Here in the United States, sold as 4G. With the loss of the repeaters, there was an increased loss of the cellular system. Not only had they lost towers and equipment in the earthquake, but now they had a progressive loss of what was left of the GSM cellular integrity. This severely crippled an already crippled response by both domestic and foreign responders. And this effect lasted for weeks and was progressive over the ensuing weeks. So in communications, land mobile radio, which was functionless over the entire country due to the loss of repeaters, was still mostly functional as walkie-talkies within the distance of and range of the handheld unit. Internet, which pre-earthquake had been handled by 3 carriers, one large carrier who owned all the equipment and technicians, and 2 smaller carriers who were mostly resellers for the large carrier, had lost that large carrier and all of the technicians, the intellect that maintained the system. So the small carriers came in and started selling the equipment and the technology that they could not themselves maintain. The CDMA cellular system, near 100% loss due to equipment damage. The GSM system, partial loss from equipment damage from the earthquake, and 6 hours later, further loss when the repeaters went down. This loss of communication hampered field reports. Now we have a loss of intel. Not only did we lose radios and cell phones, but as responders, both from the Caribbean and the international community, governmental and non-governmental, arrived, they brought with them their own technology. Family band radios, other radios, their own cellular phones, satellite phones, microwave dishes. They came to Haiti, one of the most regulated radio spectrums in the Caribbean. And ComCell, Haiti's version of FCC, was closed for business because their offices were collapsed. Nobody available to assign spectrum to give you your channel, your band. And just like the old days of the 70s, you turned on your CB radio and you looked for an empty channel to chat on, people just turned on their phone, turned on their sat, turned on their satellite, turned on their microwave dish, and they looked for an empty channel and claimed it as theirs. Site surveys were either inaccurate or non-existent. Internet access, also non-existent. And forget about the emergency operations centers. They weren't there to begin with, and nobody set them up in the first days and weeks, other than to handle their own field office for their own local rescue operation. Coordinated emergency operations were left to the UN and a few embassies who did the best they could to coordinate within those they could reach, but communications and intel were hampered.
And for an example of the effect of this process, this phenomenon, let's look at what we all know to be an essential component of the initial response, and that being medical. Most of the hospitals, clinics, healthcare delivery services of any kind, and equipment in the earthquake zone were damaged and destroyed. Most of the services that existed in the country were within that red kidney-shaped area. So this is the majority of what was available to respond to the area was not usable. The equipment that was not destroyed directly by debris falling on top of it, much of it was also rendered unusable. Consider what happens when ultrasound machines are subject to seismic activity. They are the equivalent of being destroyed. So we have that initial response being hampered, and what would later be found, about for 6 to 8 weeks after the earthquake, was the impact for many months and years to come. The National Health Sciences University collapsed in the earthquake. It was in Port-au-Prince, directly connected to the largest public hospital in Port-au-Prince. The majority of medical, nursing, and physical therapy students and their professors perished in the collapse of that building. So not only do we have an initial response that is hampered, but the ability for native backfill to continue the relief effort would be hampered for the next 5 to 10 years. In emergency management, we typically are able to interface with a variety of resources and networks to help us meet such overwhelming challenges. Interfacing with government liaisons and having structured relationships with community resources, public works, mutual aid networks, and at our disposal a number of credentialed sources to bring us additional information for a variety of reasons and for a variety of types was not the case here. Those were things that folks had wanted to plan as being part of the compact that they signed in October of 2009, but had yet to begin. What few liaisons did exist within the government, unfortunately, in a matter of 35 seconds, the majority of them no longer existed. So from this limited intel, we began a perpetually limited understanding of the situation. By not having this good intel, we were hampered in our ability to make good decisions, and additional barriers made this process even more difficult as well as less effective. And those barriers being framing bias, which is the vantage point that any one of us can bring to the situation based on our own experience and knowledge and preconceptions, language barriers, cultural barriers, and something which we've come to term misinformation overload. Many of us are familiar with the term information overload. However, the phenomenon that was occurring continually in Haiti was that there were so many folks with a voice trying to say what they believed to be the situation at hand and the needs at hand. It often overpowered the true message. Again, this was all separated in time because of communication issues from real time. So the perception of the need by the time it filtered back to aid organizations was often not the reality. So in emergency management, the initial challenges already had overwhelmed the resources. Only information available was significantly removed from real-time understanding. And so to establish and maintain a continued effort would require continuous innovation. We'd like to spend the next segment of slides and discuss with you from a standpoint of NIMS leadership the challenges at each one of these levels and what opportunities there would be for employing response augmentation technologies. Although it is not the top of the food chain in the NIMS organization, communication was the foundation of so many of the challenges and would become the foundation of so many of the solutions for what needed to happen in Haiti. My apologies. Sometimes these were related to the inability to use the channel or type of communication system that you were most familiar with. By directing competing and temporary bandit devices, the use up of spectrums versus having spectrum assignments being made was impossible. The regulatory organizations that normally did that job were at the time not functional. The result was interference on every bandwidth. Internet service provider issues were compounded not just by the loss of personnel and by the loss of equipment and interruption of service, but also on some pre-existing conditions, one being what is termed best effort shared services. How internet services were historically provided in Haiti were harkened back to what folks in the United States would recall as party lines on the telephone back in the 50s and 60s. If you picked up the phone in the middle of the night to call someone, you were most likely to be able to get through without any interference, and you would have control over the bandwidth available to you, with the equivalent of bandwidth available to you. If you tried to make that same telephone on a party line at noontime, you could be competing with everyone in your service area. After the earthquake, with an even more narrow pipeline available for this best effort share service, you could be trying to compete with 100 or more persons trying to deliver messages simultaneously. Add to that the amazing profiteering that quickly ensued after the earthquake, with those selling contract services but unable to deliver them, even though they would be happy to collect 3 to 5 months advance pay for those services, and having people pay up to $500 a month for what was the equivalent of 1996 dial-up computer service in the United States was an ever-increasing problem.
Response augmentation technologies provide obvious solutions to these kinds of communication problems. The first that we brought to Haiti were cellular boosters. These are devices that boost the cell signal within the assigned channel and allow the cell phone in your hand to reach further out to the closest working cell phone tower. Other devices were things along the lines of internet over satellite phone, licensed low band or industrial band microwave private networking systems, field deployable EOC software that allowed for logistics and field reporting in what is known as burst upload. This allowed for the use of those best effort shared networking systems at times when the other people were not on your network. With the use of these technologies, communication problems could be bridged.
Looking now to command operations and public information officer duties, the lack of intel would clearly be an issue, sometimes due to communication connectivity problems themselves, and at other times due to organizations working within a silo. Case in point, the disconnect between government operations and non-government operations. Many of you may be aware that prior to the earthquake in Haiti, there were some 350 registered non-government organizations with an in-country presence. Within 1 week post-earthquake, that number would skyrocket to registered organizations over 1,000 and a completely unknown number of unregistered non-government organizations. There was also uncertainty of the role of foreign military presence for multiple nations as well as Haiti, the government of Haiti itself. Foreigners from disparate countries quickly outnumbered Haitians in incident command roles, and as a result, many foreigners all at once were speaking for Haiti and at times drowning out the message that the government of Haiti and the laypersons of Haiti were trying to get out about their own needs and desires.
Response augmentation technologies provide additional opportunities to improve both the timeliness of intel as well as its accuracy. Remote sensing technologies, satellite technologies, as well as simple things such as local cell phone access, text messaging, and the use of social media and social media surveillance provide the opportunity to gather real-time intelligence, real-time information on command, as well as to bridge gaps on this lack of accurate intel. The ability to provide more than just email between NGOs and governmental organizations, and provide real-time information on the role of foreign military as well as the role of all of these visiting governmental officials to the Haitian people, and to promote the message of native local government. This is not only a problem in Haiti, but a problem for all local governments when there are joint operations between local, regional, and larger scale officials, as well as when government and non-governmental organizations cooperate.
Looking now at the roles of planning and operations personnel, one of their greatest challenges was the fact that there was little government of Haiti experience in coordinating emergency management, issues of public safety, aspects of public health, and any of the services that we in North America continue to be part of the healthcare continuum. Understandably so, also the lack of intel and the numerous communications issues would also hamper their effectiveness.
From a technology application side, when we look at how little experience the government has, or any organization has in responding to a disaster, we look at how can we project expertise into this situation. The use of field deployment of emergency operations software, the ability to teleconference and provide mentoring from those experienced in emergency management to those who don't have that level of expertise, that ability to coordinate emergency management, public safety, public health, and services across the healthcare spectrum. The last speaker in the 3 o'clock hour spoke about the use of open source software in healthcare management. This type of response augmentation technology provides the ability to inject first world industrial nation coordination into these disadvantaged, disabled, and damaged areas. It also allows for the gathering of that intel and reintroduction of that intel back to planning and operations. without the communications issues, because the communication can be done in an asynchronous fashion.
Let's consider now challenges that faced by administration and finance officers. In the aspects of administration and finance within the government of Haiti, many of the decision makers and leadership were lost in the initial quake and shortly thereafter in the aftermath of medical issues. Even those who were influence leaders were also lost, and few in a position of authority were able to take their place. There also was no physical place to conduct business, as the majority of government offices were leveled. And once contiguous offices, particularly in admin and finance, were now widely dispersed across the city and into the suburban areas and did not have direct communication with each other. Pre-quake paperless government was the status quo in Haiti. However, they were quickly thrown into a manual paperless system, and the majority of the employees who still survived had not experienced a manual or paper system, and that in itself was an indigenous challenge. And there were significant physical risks of retrieving historical data, as the buildings had collapsed on this historical documents, and what would be considered rules, regulations, standards of practice, and precedent were not obtainable.
Not all augmentation technologies are technological or expensive. We chose the background of this slide deliberately. It's an old Royal typewriter. In post-earthquake Haiti, as government offices reopened, we had to obtain an import license in order to facilitate the purchase and import of $14.8 million worth of medication into the country of Haiti. During that process, we came to see firsthand the reinstitution of the manual and paper system within the government of Haiti and the widely dispersed offices as they reopened. As a government official would attempt to process a new license on paper, they would have to type up that license on one of these old Royal typewriters. The response augmentation technology that we brought, as it turned out, was a piece of carbon paper. Because while they had the typewriters, the ribbons had long since been lost. When we provided the carbon paper, one official would hold the carbon paper in place while the other typed in all the boxes. Sometimes it is more ingenuity and resourcefulness than it is technology that allows for the response to move forward.
Also within the realm of administration and finance is the key challenge of Haiti being the poorest nation overnight on the planet. And that even where structures were intact and loss of life was not as great, in commerce outside of the quake zone across the entire nation would be impacted. Haiti had 3 ports of import and export, and its major port, import of prints, was destroyed, although quickly rebuilt with the assistance of the U.S. Navy. But the effects of that would last for months to come. One thing I wanted to discuss in the context of admin and finance was something that quickly became labeled bad aid in Haiti. And the background of this slide was chosen on purpose because one example of bad aid that I would like to describe to you was a group of folks, well-intended, in North America, living above the Mason-Dixon line, who in January, looking out the window, could see more than 12 inches of snow in their front lawns, thought it would be helpful to the citizens of Haiti to box up several hundred winter jackets and ship them to this tropical nation. So here we are with the influx of clothing that could not be worn in this particular country, and also because it was not labeled with a particular address or responsible person, could not be reappropriated or sold to contribute those dollars for things that really were necessary. Another aspect of bad aid was the fact that not all foreigners were aware of the economic situation prior to the earthquake in Haiti and what industries were actually there and operating and profitable. A large discount retailer had boxed up numerous bundles of t-shirts and tennis shoes, extremely appropriate type clothing for a tropical region, would be needed by many people. However, they were also of the same brand label as two of the only surviving industries in Haiti after the earthquake, where these exact same brand labels of t-shirts and tennis shoes were being made, and ran the risk of putting out of work those few people who still did have consumer goods jobs within the nation. Add to that a lack of recognition by a number of foreigners for the authority and the autonomy of domestic officials coming back to work as government operations reemerged, and we had compounding administrative and finance issues.
Here, response augmentation technology occurred less in the field than it did back in the ports of debarkation for the aid. As soon as those organizations dispatching aid realized that some aid was becoming bad aid, they began to use UPC scanners and websites to help those dispatching aid, including, in some cases, large retailers who were collecting aid at their stores, to better direct donors at the type of aid that was most needed in Haiti. This simple use of supply chain logistics shifted the type of aid and quickly decreased the amount of bad aid arriving in Haiti, as well as increased the amount of good aid and useful logistical assistance, both for those providing now established emergency management in Haiti, as well as those providing shipping logistics for the ever-increasing tidal wave of aid being dispatched into Haiti.
As Maurice just intimated, logistics issues were directly tied to many of the administrative and financial issues. Supplies coming into and across the country, and transportation of supplies, personnel, fuel, food, clothing, and even patients and their families all became jobs of the logistics personnel. Also key to logistics strategies were how to bring in housing for persons affected by the earthquake. Not only did they need to be deployed in an appropriate fashion, but they needed to be deployable, both by customs regulations and also appropriate to the environment in which they were arriving. Not everything that was being sent was going to survive in a tropical climate. One also needed to account for the building of sites. It was not a time where squatting was going to be the law of the land, and also appropriating what was needed for sanitation was also going to be something that was not part of original plans. Even the initial UN clusters had accidentally omitted this particular need from the overall needs of the rebuild situation. Logistics also became the leadership category to required to handle donations of all kinds, put into task assessing what the needs truly were, what truly existed in the country, working on aspects of importation and distribution within country, and employing a unique way of applying salvage laws.
Here again, response augmentation technologies took on a unique role. When it came to the aid arriving addressed, in quotes, to the people of Haiti, this effectively became abandoned goods, clogging the ports not only in Port-au-Prince, but in the north and in the south of the country. As these goods accumulated, it became obvious that they would have to, in some fashion, be impounded, declared abandoned, and then salvaged under international salvage law. The use of logistical software, UPC scanners, and in some cases, simple brute force labor to count and inventory these items on the part of Haitian military, volunteers, and the Haitian Coast Guard allowed for materials that in past years and in past disasters would have become landfill to be salvaged, inventoried, and ultimately distributed through UN clusters, non-governmental organizations, and even official channels to the people of Haiti, those most in need of these salvage goods. And literally millions of metric tons were redistributed to those destinations for which they were initially intended.
And although we always preach that it be the first thing that we think of, our last category that we are discussing, the MIMS leadership, is going to be that of safety personnel. There were two key areas of safety that presented themselves as challenges over and over again in both the initial and the continued response in Haiti, that being force preparation and force protection. Pardon my cough. Preparation issues. There were numerous. Not every organization that presented to assist in the operation had the necessary medical or disaster behavioral health preparations in their own practices. Equipment, skills, and supplies were also not a common denominator. And language and cultural awareness, in order to be able to effectively deliver medical care or mental health services, was also not appreciated by every single person that presented themselves to country. From a force protection standpoint, it truly did surprise us that how many organizations who presented in country to be part of the relief effort had not within their own structure or their own personnel the ability to care for themselves medically, or care for their own behavioral health needs, or provide public health strategies and protection for their personnel. For instance, many came without anti-malarials to protect themselves from getting disease. And also exit strategies for evacuation should there be unsafe living conditions or unsafe political atmosphere changes, or to prepare for their own demobilization, there was no common denominator.
This was a situation perfectly suited to response augmentation technologies. Not only was the process of deploying to Haiti time consuming, but the transportation to Haiti itself provided for long delays that allowed for presentations and telepresence webinars. The opportunity to provide force protection education, both medical and disaster behavioral health, as well as the use of telemedicine and tele-disaster behavioral health for consultation and force protection, and even CISM services for teams in the field were utilized by our team and others. Public health consultation and public health surveillance, as well as syndromic surveillance, or other response augmentation technology uses during the Haiti response, as well as examples for future responses. Response augmentation technologies utilized in Haiti span the spectrum from the amazingly simple and humble to those that were surprisingly complex Since the earthquake in Haiti in January of 2010, many new response augmentation technologies have come into existence. The lessons that were learned in Haiti can be applied in most emergency management situations and can augment emergency management responses in the United States as well as abroad. The ideal response augmentation technology is still the emergency management professional and the ingenious disaster responder. Our ideal response augmentation technology, our friend MacGyver. If it is ingenious, innovative, and a little bit quirky, he'll think of it.
We'd like to take just a few minutes and shine a light on individual response augmentation technologies. We discuss them in the context of challenges and opportunities, but here's just a little bit of expansion of each of the individual resources and some of the ways that we did use them in country. Starting first with those amazingly low-tech items, everybody's favorite response augmentation technology, duct tape. Good for anything from repairing clothing to repairing equipment to bracing an arm or a leg. Zip ties and carabiners were brought to new heights in their ability to come into play in the disaster world. iPhones and ThinkPads were quickly replaced by notebooks, pencils, and good old-fashioned permanent markers that could be used for anything and were used for anything under the sun. Maurice already described to you how carbon paper and a manual typewriter became the response augmentation technology to effect an import license. Not something that we thought before we left home. And one item that I now will never leave home without is a soldering iron. Always had the cables, but never had the soldering iron. And that was needed for everything from repairing eyeglasses to repairing satellite dishes.
Facilitating and enabling augmentation technologies include everything from handheld medical equipment to cellular on wheels. The cellular boosters and repeaters that we discussed, as well as the cellular and WiMAX repeaters that were installed by the FCC in cooperation with the United States Coast Guard, that brought the WiMAX system as well as land mobile radio system back online in Haiti by the fourth week after the earthquake. Amateur radio and our RACES colleagues cannot be forgotten, not only here in the United States, but for their contribution in Haiti. They provided internet capability as well as voice communications and other data communications, both within the country as well as back to the United States. And internet resources, including blogs that allowed for communication as well as data updates and intel, aerial maps, and even good old Google Earth provided information about what was going on in Haiti, as well as the ability to know what roads were open and what roads were not. Many technologies were recast. Smartphones became means for transmitting medical information and even telemedicine. Satellite phones were not only used for voice, but became telemedicine links and internet links. Laptops and webcams became teleseminar links. Skype became a telebehavioral health and CISM conference and consult link. Here in the United States, we're seeing an increase in the use of traffic and dash cams, as well as security and ATM cameras, not only as remote sensing, but as surveillance and even weather monitoring. The motion sensor in your cell phone, as well as motion sensors in buildings, are being utilized, as well as digital cameras, and the field deployment of EOC software is now being utilized for field reporting, as well as to improve logistics and needs assessments.
And just spending a minute here to highlight telemedicine in the field, which has changed drastically since I first began in telemedicine in the middle 1990s. It has gone from a room full of equipment to what you see right here in front of you on this slide, which is a portable, rugged portable telemedicine camera capable of sending to and from the field, and is no larger than the size of a traditional 35 millimeter reflex camera. We were able to use this successfully in both telemedicine, disaster behavioral health, and teledentistry in the field. We could get consults from home base. We could bring teaching back to the United States. Additional disaster field utilities for telemedicine cameras that are progressing along at a very quick clip have been search and rescue, building inspections, and field reporting of all types. Continued potential in the disaster behavioral health world is huge. Long-term recovery and rehab is also an aspect of telemedicine that has not traditionally been used in field situations and in disaster recovery situations. Being able to guide local personnel with little experience in physical therapy, for instance, over time with the expert physical therapist on the other end will be a great boon to Haiti. And the ability to teach, to bring lessons from the field back to those who were learning to be field responsive, to learning to be field responders, is a large opportunity for telemedicine to play a role.
When we look at emerging technologies, everyone loves to think about robotics, but our military and field tactical SWAT teams have taught us the value of unmanned vehicles, UAVs. Some as small as a Coke can with wheels and a camera and a microphone and even a speaker and location sensors give us the ability now to look around corners in small crevices, in those small air pockets that were described by Dee in her first presentations. Social media surveillance is that ability to monitor Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, MySpace, and even text messaging to see what a population in distress is discussing, what their needs, what their fears, and even to broadcast into the social media, to respond directly in the voice, in the language, in the culture of the people whom we serve. Smart devices such as the iPhones, Blackberries, and Androids on your belt right now are the newest laptops. And they have sensors, they have thermistors, temperature sensors that read not only the ambient temperature around you, but your body temperature. They have accelerometers that sense not only how fast you are moving, but the G-force that you are pulling and the direction in which you are moving. They have magnetometers that sense not only your angle of acceleration, but your relative space, direction in space, your orientation, as well as the force of gravity on you. In effect, you right now are a LoJack disaster responder, a LoJack emergency manager. There is as much telemetry on you at your belt as there was on an astronaut in the 60s headed for the moon. And if I jack into your smart device, I can know as much about you as we knew about Neil Armstrong as he stepped onto the face of the moon. The future of response augmentation technologies, social media communication and social media broadcast. The ability to communicate with people in real time in the means which is most familiar to the emerging generation. Crowd computing, those last few bullets on the last presentation, that ability to sense what is going on in a crowd, in the community in real time. Crowd telemetry, the ability to jack not into one of those LoJack cell phones, but into all of them at one time and know what is going on throughout the city in real time. Those last scenes of Batman, the Dark Knight, but in reality, not in the fantasy world of Hollywood. Mesh computing networking and smartphone hotspot networking. Not one phone connecting to 5 devices as the major networks are selling today, but the ability when a telecommunications network goes down to reroute all telecommunications through the very smartphones that are using the network right now, in the same way that you used to pass a message across the room when you were in grade school. This is not science fiction. This is technology that has developed just since January 12th, 2010, and is being tested now throughout the United States. In the words of the song from the 80s, the future is bright. I ought to wear shades. We thank you for your kind attention, and we turn it over to the moderator to open it for questions.
If there are any questions, you can post them in the question area. Okay, I'm not seeing questions. I want to thank our speaker, Maurice Ramirez, very much. Thank you very much for that presentation. And I'd like to thank all the participants as well. Thank you very much for all of your participation. And I'd like to especially thank our presenters who did a fantastic job this afternoon. As I said at the beginning of this webcast, we will be sending out the download links for these presentations to the participants, and we will also be preparing certificates of attendance. And if you will be requiring training attendance credit for this session, we will be in contact with you to coordinate the testing so that we can issue that certificate to you as well. And if you have any questions, certainly feel free to contact us. cwoolers@knowledgefoundation.com, or also you can contact IEM, and they'll be able to answer any questions you may have as well. Thank you again for your participation, and we hope you have a good evening.